Hello, and welcome back to Me Screaming into the Void. Happy 2026. Let's hope it's less of a doozy than it was last year, even though last year we had a couple of fantastic horror movies, which I will be talking about today. As you can see, I am dressed for the occasion because we're starting off strong this year. I'm going to start this year by wearing a onesie and getting into the comfort zone. We have reached final level. Editor, put some enlightened light in the background. If you have survived part 2 of the suffering, congrats. Here is the Nuggie. Today we're talking about the movies that really made it worth it for me, from slow burns to chaotic messes, ending with some bonuses, because of course we're ending with bonuses. Keep in mind that these do not include the movies that I deep dived into and loved, like The Monkey, Heart Eyes, The Surfer, and 28 Years Later, or the ones I mentioned in my Hooptober watches like Sinners or Mug Mug. Let's start 2026 on a high note. I have divided this video up into 4 levels from least to most unhinged. They are in no particular order when it comes to how much I liked them. You know me by now. I usually like to start slow and then move on to the more unhinged messes. And since there's so many movies to talk about, I had to start somewhere. Starting off with the slow burns, these are for when you want to sink into a mood. They aren't really trying to jump scare you. They only want to haunt you for a couple of weeks. First up, The Life of Chuck, directed by Mike Flanagan, starring Tom Hiddleston, Mark Hamill, and Matthew Lillard. It's based on a Stephen King novella about a man's life told in reverse, from the end of the world back to his childhood. It's not about monsters, it's about the horror of realizing that everything ends. Flanagan continues his King obsession, but goes full-on existential dread this time. I also have to say I'm looking forward to Carrie, not just because Lillard is starring in it, but also because Lillard is starring in it. Bruh. When it comes to Flanagan and his style of making movies and series, for me, it's a bit of a mixed bag. I enjoyed a lot that it was not boo scary, but more of a we're all gonna die and somehow it's gonna be beautiful and awful dread scary. Hiddleston is heartbreakingly human in this very sad story. The dance sequence was fun to say the least, and Matthew Lillard was mesmerizing for those 5 minutes that he was in this movie. If you're looking for jump scares, this is definitely not the movie for you. This movie is very gentle and has a backward structure and may feel too meandering for some. I like that they took this thing about the life of a human being and made it into this existential horror end of the world story. Now comes a tiny little spoiler. So if you don't want to know anything about this, then skip to the next movie. To visually represent Chuck's world narrowing and dying as he also is dying, Flanagan and his DP Eben Bolter used 3 different aspect ratios. They used impression filters behind normal lenses to physically distort the edges of the frame as the world decays. I must say, one of my favorite Flanagan movies up to date. Next up, Keeper, directed by Osgood Perkins. Who's not surprised? I'm not surprised. You must also not be surprised if you've been here long enough, because you know Osgood Perkins and me have a very close relationship. Okay. No, I don't know him personally, but I love his movies. He did it again. I was very enticed in this moody cabin horror folktale. It's starring Tatiana Maslany and Rossif Sutherland, who are excellent. It is about a couple's anniversary retreat at a remote cabin that spirals into psychological and folk horror dread when the husband's secrets start manifesting as monsters in the shadows. It's classic Osgood Perkins. If you were annoyed, unlike me, who wasn't annoyed because I love The Monkey, but if you were annoyed at The Monkey because it wasn't this slow burn, atmospheric, and focused on the rot beneath the surface kind of a thing, you will like this one. Even though I hope he's gonna make more stuff like The Monkey in the future. Tatiana Maslany is excellent as always, and the mood is deliciously cursed, and you can feel the heaviness through the lens. It was so well executed. If you need plot momentum, you'll struggle with this one. However, if you like things like monsters lurking in the shadows and this unease of something is behind your back but you can't see it, you will love it. This movie is very still, very rotten, very Osgood Perkins. The literal monsters in the cabin were supervised by VFX specialist Edward Douglas, who was already involved in Longlegs and the Monkey. Perkins insisted on the monsters being present in low lighting so that Maslany's reactions were to actual physical shapes in the shadows, which again just shows how much certain things matter, and you can't just be lazy when you make movies. Next up, Mother of Flies, directed by the Addams Family. No, not that one, the other one. They are known in general for making, editing, directing, and starring in their own movies. It's a mother, father, daughter trio, John Adams, Toby Poser, and Zelda Adams. It's about a terminally ill woman who's suffering from cancer who seeks a cure from a witch in a woods, dragging her father with her into a 3-day ritual of dark arts and grotesque transformation. It's another DIY gem from the Addams Family, who also did Hellbender. I really like that they do everything themselves because they create this unique, intimate brand of folk horror and add this very unique touch. And I'm super, super excited for anything else that they will be bringing in the future. They have really haunting visuals and these emotionally heavy themes that they deal with. The practical effects are stunningly gross. This movie can be slow for some, so if you're not into that, you might want to skip this one. However, I stayed for the very witchy, foresty vibes that this whole movie was bringing. The family drew from their own personal experience with cancer. They mentioned that it was a bold middle finger raised at our own ugly experiences. They use forest moss, mud, and roots for almost all the grotesque witch transformations rather than silicone to keep them looking organic. It's a good movie. I liked it a lot. It's coming out this year, so keep an eye out for that. Next up, Boorman and the Devil. This documentary made me so emotional and made me once again just fall in love all over again with the art and craft and blood, sweat, and tears that goes into movie making. It's a documentary about the exorcist heretic, which has been widely hated by audiences. But once you watch this documentary, I promise you, you will want to rewatch the movie. This is pretty much an autopsy of The Exorcist to The Heretic, how John Boorman made one of the wildest sequels ever and how it almost destroyed him. This movie is catnip for horror nerds, focusing on studio chaos, ego, and fascinating creative choices. And when I say fascinating, I mean absolutely insane. The things they did on set to create the mood was very out there. The behind the scenes lore and what certain actors allowed themselves on set. I was a couple of times there when I was like, he did not just do that. If you love what happens and why this is perfect, it reframes Exorcist 2 as this mesmerizing failure rather than just being a bad movie. If you don't care about Exorcist 2 or filmmaking in general, some nuances will be lost on you, but I still think it's a great watch. I was very emotional by the end. I think I'm gonna watch Heretic again with a new lens. I haven't yet gotten around to it because other things were in the way. Movies, yes, other movies were in the way. We are upping the ante a bit. We are going into tense and psychological. First up, Exit 8, directed by Genki Kawamura. It's based on a viral looping hallway game, a man who is stuck in a subway station that resets every time he takes the wrong exit. The only way out, spot all the anomalies in each loop. Miss one, and just don't miss one. This is minimalist Japanese horror built almost entirely from repetition, tiny visual changes, and psychological dread. It is basically an anxiety disorder in movie form. Simple concept, wonderfully crafted execution. If you're ever fixated on little details in movies, this will make you pause and look more than just twice. It's laser focused on one single idea. And if that doesn't hook you, then you're pretty much out. I don't think you will want to watch this one. For me, it was a sweat-inducing experience. It's the only movie where a slightly misaligned floor tile is the jump scare. The Long Walk by Francis Lauren. I've seen mixed reviews about this movie. I feel like either you completely hated it or you absolutely loved it. It's starring Cooper Hoffman, David Johnson, and Mark Hamill. Another movie that is based on a Stephen King novel. King last year had a good run with The Monkey, Life of Chuck, The Long Walk, and Running Man. I'm actually very happy for him. For a very long time, Stephen King movies were like a little bit meh. I know some hardcore fans will disagree with me, but I feel like there were a couple of movies that the new Carrie was horrible and should be deleted from existence. What I would love to be made into a movie, please, for the love of everything that is unholy on this planet, can somebody make a movie of Rose Madder? Rose Madder is one of my absolute favorite Stephen King books, and I really would love to see it being made into a movie by a female director, preferably Coralie Farja. This movie is about a group of teenage boys that every year enter into a walking contest. If you stop, you die. The last one standing wins something. I'm not gonna spoil it for you. This movie was in development hell for 35 years. First, Romero was asked, but he moved to Creepshow. Then Frank Darabont showed vague interest, but not really. And then Andre Overdahl seemed attached to it, but again, not really. Until Francis Lawrence finally brought it to the screen, leaning into this grim, repetitive cruelty of the story. Cooper Hoffman and Mark Hamill are perfect opposites. It is exhausting if you don't want to watch people walk around for an entire movie, but that is the purpose of it. So if that's not for you or you're looking for something hopeful, this is not it. I freaking loved Hamill in this one. I don't know where he got his inspo from. I wanted to punch his face several times during the movie. It's a dystopian nightmare that lingers long after the credits. I had to watch something a little more bloody and fun after that. Next up, Hallow Road, directed by Babak Anvari. It's starring Rosamund Pike and Matthew Rhys. In this story, they play parents whose teenage daughter accidentally kills someone on Hallow Road. The parents choose to cover it up rather than call the police. As they drive deeper into the night, guilt and something far worse starts haunting the family. Rosamund Pike, playing once again a morally compromised woman, is peak. Matthew Rhys is a perfect match as a husband who's unraveling beside her in the car. This whole movie plays in the car. If you're not into tight claustrophobic tension on a singular road trip to disaster, you will not like it. If you're expecting catharsis or comfort from this movie, I don't think this one will be for you. The tension comes from the mounting guilt that these parents have and the messiness that they go through rather than action. It's a very great parents doing dumb stuff anxiety horror. To film the claustrophobic car scenes, the production built a custom prop car that allowed the camera to whip pan 360 degrees inside the vehicle. Next up, The Rule of Jenny Penn, directed by James Ashcroft. It's starring John Lithgow and Geoffrey Rush. This movie is insanely good. I, in general, have been very interested in horror movies that delve into the horror of becoming old and not being able to control your mind and your body. It's a very intriguing perspective. I like to live vicariously through characters that go through things. I guess that's also why I love horror movies so much. In this movie, a judge suffering from a stroke is sent to a long-term care facility where he becomes the target of a fellow resident who enforces a sadistic set of rules through psychological torment and cruelty. What begins as childish games escalates into a battle for dignity, autonomy, and survival. Who would have thought that an old people's home could become so messy? It's adapted from the short story by a New Zealand author, Owen Marshall. It's a restrained, New Zealand shot psychological horror that leans heavily on the performances and power dynamics rather than obvious scares. Rush is freaking amazing, and let's not even talk about Lithgow, who is terrifying. This movie is mean. It understands that in real life, the scariest horror comes from what it means to get to an age where your body and your mind betray you and you have no way to escape. This movie is bleak, upsetting, and highly effective, designed to ruin your mood on purpose. Next up, No Me Sigas, directed by Jimen Garcia Lecuona and Eduardo Lecuona, starring Carla Coronado and Yankel Stevan. It's about an aspiring influencer who moves into a notoriously haunted building and starts faking paranormal content to chase clout. Unfortunately, all the fake summoning eventually invites a very real entity. The usual trope, set in found footage, and it is Blumhouse's first Spanish language original. It's shot in Mexico City, leaning into influencer culture and digital age possession. This movie uses the influencer horror trope in a way that feels tense and not just cringe. It has a strong sense of what it's going for. For me, it was a steady climb of dread, and I found it a smart and stylish entry into the clout will kill you subgenre. The Remedy, directed by Alex Cahua, starring Timothy Granaderos, London Thor, and Doug Jones. It's about a young man desperate to cure his dying mother who unleashes a flesh-hungry entity after turning to a mysterious healer. What starts as an act of love becomes a slow, gruesome descent into grief-fueled horror. It's this 1980s set creature feature in which Doug Jones pulls double duty as both healer and monster, wrapped in practical effects. Caregiving with teeth. I love the premise because it shows how far will you go to save one of your relatives and how much damage can you do trying to save your relatives. I'm sorry, but grief can do some really, really effed up stuff to people. And even though it has these familiar grief horror beats that won't surprise the genre veterans, I still think it's a nasty little beast of a movie, which is visually haunting. Doug Jones wore a lead-weight creature suit to emphasize the physical toll. Next level, visceral and messy. This is where the blood budget kicks in. First up, Bring Her Back, directed by the Philippou brothers, who also directed Talk to Me, starring Billy Barrett, Sora Wong, Jonah Wren Phillips, and Sally Hawkins. It's about orphaned siblings that are taken in by a foster mother who's played by the fantastic Sally Hawkins, who is still mourning the death of her biological daughter. She becomes obsessed with bringing her back, no matter what it takes. The Philippou brothers follow Talk to Me with another grief-induced nightmare. Sally Hawkins is terrifying, desperate, and heartbreaking. I did not know whether to be angry with her or sad for her. The effects in this movie are, oh no, absolutely not level. I'm just talking the knife scene, for one, the cat scene, and in general, the boy. This movie was very horrifying and not just in a gross for fun way. It is definitely a nasty follow-up to Talk to Me, even though not as impactful. Danny Philippou actually chewed on a metal knife to give the Folly team a reference of the teeth on steel crunch sound. When I read that, my teeth were not okay. I could literally feel it. Next up, Together, directed by Michael Shanks, starring Dave Franco and Alison Brie, who are also in real life together, which just made this movie so much more fun. It's about a struggling couple who moves to the country to reset their relationship. After a fall into a mysterious cave, they slowly realize their bodies are literally fusing together. Love language, but make it body horror. Yay! I was so uncomfortable watching this movie. This is a body horror romance blending practical and digital effects to create disturbingly convincing merging bodies. Alison Brie and DeFranco were so disgustingly sweet. The dependency metaphor, we're too enmeshed, lands beautifully, and the fusion effects are gnarly AF. If you're squeamish about body horror, horror, don't do it. If you want to see what your date is like, hit play. Perfect way to test your date. A love story for people who think Till Death Do Us Part is way too basic. The VFX supervisor, Genevieve Camilleri, who also did the effects for Love and Monsters and Velvet Buzzsaw, to name a few, used a prosthetic build of Dave Franco's chest mounted on a canvas so she could stick her fingers through the back to poke into the skin from the inside. Listen, I in general already have a problem with touchy-feely stuff, and this movie just brought it to such a level. I almost couldn't watch it, even though I will be rewatching it at some point because it was just too much. Next up, Mermaid, directed by Tyler Karnak, who also directed Bud Boy. If you watch Bud Boy, you know what you're getting into. It's starring Johnny Pemberton, Avery Potemry as the mermaid, Robert Patrick, and Kevin Nealon. It's about a Percocet-addicted Florida man, you heard that right, at rock bottom, who finds a wounded mermaid and drags her into his crappy home. Floridian shenanigans ensue. This is a darkly comedic horror thriller shot in Florida, pitched as Florida man tragedy with scales. This is a Florida fever dream. Sweaty, weird, and very sad. The mermaid is more monster than fantasy, which is practical effects heaven. It's about miserable people making very bad choices repeatedly. It's grimy, bizarre, and surprisingly affecting. The mermaid was a 105-pound animatronic tail and suit. The actress Avery Patera had to be hoisted by crane for the violent sequences to simulate the heavy flopping power of a deep-sea predator. This movie was amazing. I am happy that we finally got another mermaid horror movie, and this one will not disappoint. It'll make you laugh and it'll make you sad. Next up, Dolly, directed by Rod Blackhurst, starring Fabienne Therese, Ethan Suplee, Sean William Scott, and Max the Impaler. It's about Macy, a young woman who is abducted by Dolly, a nonverbal figure intent on raising her as their own child. If you missed the backwoods redneck monsters tropes, this one will fill that void. This movie is not nuanced. It's expanded from Blackhurst's short Baby Girl into a lean splatter movie with doll imagery and nasty effects. The practical gore is fun, the porcelain mask and uncanny doll movements are creepy as hell. Ethan Suplee and Sean William Scott were a fun addition to the cast, however, very light on plot and very heavy on the suffering. Some might be rightfully bothered by the bigger-sized nonverbal woman is a psychoplot. I was slightly disappointed by it, but it was still a fun watch. The character of Dolly was played by the professional wrestler Max the Impaler, who wore a giant heavy porcelain baby doll mask, literally. Next up, La Casa en el Árbol, or The Treehouse, directed by Luis Calderon, starring Sandra Escacena and Claudio Portalo. It's about a woman who returns to the remote treehouse where her boyfriend died a year ago to hunt the predator that killed him, only to find the truth goes far deeper than that. This movie was a Spanish festival hit that blends the slasher genre with deep psychological trauma. It uses the final girl trope to explore grief and identity, then twists it with a very fresh perspective. This movie took me by surprise. The script elevates the genre to something more than just the slashery tropes of dumb-ass teenagers running around in the woods. The tone is very heavy, so if you're expecting a fun Friday slasher night watch, this one is definitely not for you. Ale's journey of self-discovery sets her apart from the typical final girl. She takes charge of her own story, even when a man continues to haunt her, reminding her of her past she cannot fully escape. Incomplete Cheers, directed by Kenichi Ugana, starring Ryu Ichinose. I know I'm butchering these names. It's about a serial killer who has a very specific artistic vision. He wants to build the perfect chair using human bones and skin as materials. It's unhinged, gory, and critiques the art world's pretentiousness while throwing buckets of blood at the screen. Visually beautiful despite the extreme gore. To save on the budget, the hundreds of bone components on set were produced by using 3D printing with skeletal scans and hand-painted with layers of latex to make it look like freshly flayed skin. If you're wanting another serial killer subgenre horror movie, this one will scratch the itch. Last level when it comes to horror. Unhinged Chaos, we have arrived. Plot is optional, vibes are screaming and bloody. First up, Weapons, directed by Zach Cregger, who also directed Barbarian. It's starring Josh Brolin, Julia Garner, Benedict Wong, and Amy Madigan as Aunt Gladys. It's an interwoven story about 17 missing children in a small American town and something deeply sinister that is working in the background. Think the Magnolia structure, but make it for horror movie fans. The multiple storylines feel very cohesive and not gimmicky. It is unpredictably mean and heavy. I love that Gregor this time said, I'm not going to over-explain my movie, because he did the last time and he was kind of miffed about it. Now he's just letting people interpret what they want into it. This movie does not hold your hands, and that's the point. If you like the tonal shift that Barbarian took and wished Magnolia had more horror elements in it, this is definitely worth the watch. It's set in the same universe as Barbarian, and that ending, I'm gonna spoil it. If you haven't watched the movie yet, skip to the next movie. Watching that pack of kids tearing into Aunt Gladys the way that they did was an absolute delight. The FX artist Jason Collins created a reset body, a prosthetic rig designed to be ripped apart and be reassembled for multiple takes. He joked before I got there, I was like, do we need therapy session before we get into this? Because these are like 8 to 9-year-old kids and they're going to be tearing apart this body, and it's pretty vicious. And ended the interview by saying the kids had a really great time. So I was like, I think we're gonna be all right. We're not causing damage in the future where they're going to have to go and have tons of therapy. I love that they were thinking of the kids. And the kids were just like, let's tear this body apart. Ah! Next up, Ghost Killer, directed by Kensuke Sonomura, starring Akari Takaishi and Mario Kuroba. It's about a college student who finds a bullet that killed legendary hitman Kudo. His vengeful spirit possesses her, turning her into a vessel for a stylish, supernatural revenge spree. From the action director behind Baby Assassins, this is an action horror hybrid where stunt work is the main meal. Fight choreography is insane. Think John Wick as a ghost, a blend of supernatural possession and martial arts. Wonderfully fun and bloody. If you're here strictly for horror and not action, you might not like this one. It's pure action horror candy and I loved every second of it. Sonomura used invisible wipes mid-punch to swap the lead actress with a professional stuntman, making her appear superhumanly fast, and it was just so much fun to watch. I highly recommend. Next up, Ick, directed by Joseph Kahn. Anybody who's been here long enough knows I'm a huge fan of Joseph Kahn. He has the perfect trifecta of unhinged, over-the-top, maximalist way of working on set, which works. Starring Brandon Routh, Malina Polly Weissman, and Mena Suvari, it's about a gross alien goop, the Ick, that infects a small town and turns people into grotesque, icky monsters. Kahn's big poppy creature feature is an 80s monster movie with a modern comedic twist and lots of practical effects. Brandon Routh is charming and perfect for this role. It's fast, it's fun, it's nasty with over-the-top dialogue in all the right ways. Kahn's movies are literally made for me. If you hate loud kinetic genre mashups, this will feel way too much for you, and I advise you not to watch it. Joseph Kahn directs like ADHD on steroids, and that's usually my favorite kind of movie. The Ick Goop was a non-toxic slime mix, so sticky that it ruined almost every set piece it touched, and that afterthought made this movie so much more fun when you watch it. Next up, Dead Talent Society, directed by John Hsu, starring Gingle Wang, Sandrine Pinna, and Chen Bolin. In the afterlife, ghosts must become viral urban legends to avoid fading away. A rookie ghost tries to build a brand in a cutthroat world of hauntings, managers, and supernatural crowd chasers. Hsu's follow-up to Detention blends Taiwanese urban legends and idol culture. It's funny, heartfelt, and visually stunning. It's a weirdly moving meditation on creativity and your worth even after you die. And I loved the tonal shift between slapstick and sentiments, which might throw some people off. It's an inventive story, one of the most delightful horror comedies I've seen in 2025, which makes me segue right into the next horror comedy, which also made me have the feels, Handsome Guys, directed by Nam Dong-hyuk, starring Lee Sung-min and Lee Hee-jun. It's a Korean remake of Tucker and Dale vs. Evil about two handsome guys finally buying their dream cabin only to be mistaken for psycho killers by a group of college kids. This movie takes the much-loved horror comedy of Tucker and Dale vs. Evil and gives it an additional Evil Dead twist. It leans completely into big dumb guy mood and has genuinely funny moments. Plus, the supernatural twist gives it its own identity. If you worship the original, you will nitpick, and that is a you problem, not a me problem. I was skeptical at first, but it won me over. It's a wacky Korean horror comedy that goes batshit insane by the finale, and as usual, the death scenes won me over completely. Next up, Deathstalker, directed by Steven Konstansky, who is finally back after Psycho Gorman. This was practical effects heaven. Starring Daniel Bernard and Patton Oswalt. That's already enough for me. It's about a barbarian warrior who is tasked with protecting a cursed amulet from an evil sorcerer and his army of pigmen monsters. It's a remake of the cheesy 80s classic, filmed with a massive love for practical effects, rubber monsters, and matte paintings in the background. This movie is ridiculous fun. It knows exactly what tone it wants to set from the very beginning to the very delicious end. The creature effects are gooey perfection. I would expect nothing less from Kostansky, to be very honest. It's pure fantasy camp, so don't expect actual scares. This is a love letter to the 80s fantasy cheese flicks that made me so happy as a kid. If you like the original or Conan the Barbarian, Beastmaster, and Krull, you will like this one. Next up, I have an issue with this movie because I really liked it. It had really nice effects and everything, but I am a bit split. Let me explain. This movie is My Son, directed by Todd Rohal. It is starring Robert Longstreet, Steve Little, and Tipper Newton. It's a depraved, transgressive comedy horror about an elderly woman named Vermina, played in drag by Robert Longstreet, who kidnaps a mother, Tipper Newton, and her daughter, and forces the mother to deflower her mutant son, Fabian. It's adapted from the underground comic by Johnny Ryan and leans heavily into trauma-esque filth, featuring diapers, vomit, and bizarre bodily fluids and other bodily parts that are way too long to be really put in use. And also there is a hole where the woman can put her hand in and takes literal wieners out. Listen, this movie is designed to be completely repulsive, utterly offensive, and hilarious to a very specific sicko audience. I like that it commits fully to being absolutely disgustingly vile. I had a couple of moments where I was like, why is this happening? Who is this movie for? Steve Little is the perfect kind of weirdo for the son role because the son was ew. This movie is not for everyone, and by that I mean not for most people. Also, I have to address this because it's a bit of an ick. I have mixed feelings. This movie features some bizarre meaty mates, which are animated AI meat characters that appear in the daughter's hallucinations, alluding to the brain rot that kids consume these days, which has me split. Because on one hand, I understand what the director was going for, and he even says that he used AI for the schlop. He did it on purpose. On the other hand, you could, ow. On the other hand, you could have just used CGI, but then it wouldn't have had the same effect. So I'm confused. So if any of you void floaters out there could help me out with my dilemma, because I was this close to not recommend this movie, but because the practical effects were so freaking fantastic and everything else about this movie made it really enticing to watch, I kind of could forgive it because one, the director didn't try to hide it. Two, the director was vehement on using it because it reflects the brain rot that kids consume these days. And three, the practical effects were really good. Steve Little's mutant character was designed by the legendary effects artist Robert Kurtzman, who was already involved in movies like Tusk, John Dies at the End, Cabin Fever, Misery, just to name very few. It's a full-on rubber suit, pustule-covered monstrosity with the biggest bratwurst I have ever seen in any movie. And I have watched a lot of movies, not bratwursts. Get your mind out of the gutter. Next up, Flush, directed by Grégory Morin, starring Jonathan Lambert. A man gets trapped in a nightclub bathroom, specifically his head gets stuck in the toilet. While stuck, he has to deal with drug dealers, rats, and the usual chaos that happens in a nightclub bathroom. It's a single location French thriller and a masterclass into turning a small, gross problem into an incredibly stressful one. It's very realistic, surprisingly funny, and makes you never want to use a public toilet ever again. This movie is very gross out heavy. Obviously, if you don't like toilets, especially ones that are frequently visited by a lot of strangers, all of whom are either drunk, sweaty, or tripping, this one is not for you. To film the scene where the toilet flushes and almost drowns the lead actor, the production built a clear acrylic plumbing set to safely control the water levels around the actor's head while keeping the camera view unobstructed. This movie was made with a lot of love. And as with my midpoint review, I have one movie that I don't know where to put, and this movie is Good Boy. Yes, such a good boy. Directed by Ben Leonberg, starring Indy, the director's dog. It's about a haunted house story told entirely from the perspective of a dog, Indy. He tries to protect his hapless owner from the ghosts he can sense, but his human can't. It's a micro-budget POV experiment. Basically, what if paranormal activity starred a good boy? Surprisingly tense and very creative, Indy is a fantastic actor, and if you found it boring, that's totally a you problem. This movie is perfect, and I'm not at all biased because of a dog. It's engaging for what it is and doesn't overstay its welcome with a 72-minute runtime. So if you can't take that hour to watch a good boy, then we're not friends anymore. Float off into the further realms of the void. The director spent 400 plus days filming his own dog in his home. He used a 15mm specially wide angle lens specifically because he wanted to capture the canine face without the fisheye distortion. The movie made me so happy. And now we get into the bonus movies, 3 of them, because they are not horror, but you need to know. Here are 3 non-horror things that made me happy last year. Number 1, no surprise here, Superman, directed by James Gunn. This is the kickoff for the new DC universe. It moves away from the dark era into something vibrant and very optimistic. Gunn remembered superhero movies can be bright, hopeful, and actually fun. And after all this blood, it felt like I needed to give you a vitamin D infusion with this movie. The Running Man, directed by Edgar Wright. It's a modern Stephen King adaptation with Edgar Wright's high-level movie energy, fast, tense, and full of action. I love the fact that there was a nod to the 1987 adaptation, having Schwarzenegger's face on the $100 bills. He even made Schwarzenegger watch it and was very nervously waiting outside. Next up, Good Fortune, directed by Aziz Ansari, starring Keanu Reeves as an angel. Listen, Keanu playing a well-meaning but incompetent angel who loses his wings trying to help Ansari's character? Yes, please. It's funny, it's warm, and Seth Rogen plays a douchebag with terrifying accuracy. And that Nuggies speech from Keanu almost made me forget the most hateful speech of his Knock Knock movie. The universe has been restored. We have the Knock Knock Pizzagate speech, and we have the Chicken Nuggies speech, and they have now put the universe back into sync. This movie was absolutely delicious. That's it. That's my 2025 horror year finally put to rest. We had some disasters, some miracles, a lot of screaming into the void. If you disagree with me, that's fine. If you hated something I loved, you're wrong, but I respect your opinion. 2026 is already looking wild, and yes, I have seen Del Toro's Frankenstein, and yes, I love it. Oscar Isaac is perfection, and the creature design is gorgeous, but I'm holding on to it until Maggie Gyllenhaal's The Bride drops in 2026, so I can do a full Frankensteinian double feature deep dive. Thank you so much for watching my video. Thank you so much for sticking with me into the new year, and thank you for letting me scream into the void about horror movies for an unreasonable amount of time. If any of these movies were your favorites, or if you think I completely lost my mind, let me know in the comments down below. Sacrifice the subscribe button to summon my screams, and I will see you next time. Bye!